Why do you think mental health issues has a stigma?
I think mental health has a stigma around it because we don't really know a lot about the subject. I think when people don't tend to know a lot about a subject, it can cause a lot of confusion. And because of that, people tend to like shy away from it. I heard a great analogy once. Somebody said, if I put you in a room and there was 4 of us in a room and we put an elephant in the room and there was complete darkness and we all touched a different part of the elephant, we'd all feel something completely different. So somebody might touch the trunk and say, oh, this is really like long and I can fit my hand around it. Someone else is like, oh, this part's quite hairy. And so if we're all in the dark about something and not really know a lot about it, it can scare us.
No, definitely, and I can back that up because even with myself, when I didn't know, when I was diagnosed, I had no idea what it was and what it wasn't, and all I knew about the stigma was very negative. So I didn't talk to anybody, I didn't tell anybody what I was diagnosed with, so it is true, it's all about education.
What was you diagnosed with?
So I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety and panic attacks, sorry, having one now. Yeah, so panic attacks, yes.
And how do you think people treated you after or during? When you told people, do you think there was a difference in the way they treated you?
Even now, if I say that, they're like, are you okay? They start to whisper. I never, you know, when you just want to say, why are you whispering? So they have a different approach to you, as if to say that, yeah, okay, I've been diagnosed, I have what I have, but I'm still me, so you don't have to protect me with cotton wool. Just act as if I didn't tell you, because if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. So, or on the other hand, you have people that don't want to really believe it. So maybe the elders, I think I find that more with, it's like, you're just, you know, in my day, this X, Y, Z, and we had this, and so they don't actually believe the word, the diagnosis mental health, and I think that's another reason for the stigma as well. And I know in my household it was never spoken about, so that's where my lack of education comes from. And now being in it and working with people and, you know, going on various courses and networking, I'm finding that it's something that's not spoken about in the home. So
in regards to mental health, we all have, it's something that as people in the world, we all relate to it. We all have a mind, we all have thoughts and subconscious and consciousness. Why don't we come together as people and talk about it more? It's like the only thing really that connects us that we can all discuss. You know, everybody in this room has been through something where they may have gone through a depression or felt low or sad at some stage. We don't talk about it. We'll talk about so many other things. People are so open about things they shouldn't be open about, or they overshare things, but no one ever talks about their mental health. Why?
I think it's because society has kind of conditioned us to always be divided, and the power that lies amongst ourselves once we're all united and collected as one is so immense. I don't think the world's ready for that. For example, even if you look at sports is all divided, whether it's countries or teams or clubs and everything, everyone has to belong somewhere, and regardless your love for sport could be the same as somebody else, you will never really get that same conversation with that person because you're from a different team. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like maybe society has kind of conditioned us to not be fully appreciative of other people. And that's one thing I say quite a lot, the fact that it's such a universal problem, regardless of wealth, family name, social class, background, infrastructure in your life, it affects everybody like equally different. I think once we can come to realize that we are all going through similar things and we'll have the same problems in our life with regards to like bereavement and death and things like that, we'll realize actually, wow, we'd be powerful together and not alone on this.
I don't think anybody likes to be vulnerable. It's like, no, everybody's trying to put on this front that we're all getting by, we're fine, like nothing affects us. But why don't we tell people, okay, last night I cried myself to sleep because I was anxious about something, or I don't know why, but I've been sad for like the last 30 days and I can't shift it. We don't talk about things like that. We'll talk about the Kardashians or EastEnders or some other nonsense.
It boils back down to the negativity. You know, when you see something to do with mental health on TV or wherever it be, it's always negative. I can't tell you, I don't watch TV anymore, but I can't tell you when I did watch TV that when I did see anything about mental health, it was positive. It was all negative. You know, someone in, you know, an asylum, yeah, exactly. So if anybody does anything bad, then they had a mental health illness. So that's why the stereotype that people connect mental health with is not something that people want to associate with. Because you associate, or not always, but mental health with violence, which is not always the case, because people that are violent are not all, most of them don't have a mental health illness. So, you know.
I think it's I personally think it's vulnerability. No one wants to be able to admit that they aren't okay. Everybody, you know, would you, some people might be scared that they might lose respect for having a mental illness, you know. Some people might think that other people won't look at them in a certain way. They won't be able to communicate the same. You might have to like step on eggshells when you're walking around them. I don't know, but I just find that it's just quite bizarre that in this day and age, people are not more open about it. Like, how are you today? I'm actually feeling really shit. Like, I'm feeling so shit. I keep hearing voices. I'm gonna go speak to somebody about it. Oh yeah, I think you should. Do you want me to come with you? It's that simple. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I think that society has become such a toxic place in that if mainstream cultures aren't adapted into your life, you're considered abnormal. So if you're not looking a type of way, dressing a type of way, going to certain type of things or places, you instantly become an outcast. And it falls under like loads of different things with regards to vulnerability. That's not considered a norm amongst like anyone. And then especially I'm talking from like a male perspective, and then from an Asian man's perspective, and then it's so different. Like I've rarely ever met like another Asian man who will come up to me and be like, yo brother, I cried last night. But I find it amongst like other friendship groups I'm in that are more diverse, people are like more open to having them type of conversations. But I think it's because of this toxicness that's been pushed to us that like, you can't do that, you got to man up, take it on the chin, or you're being a girl, you're being a sissy, this and that. What's wrong with you? Man up, take it on the chin. Things like that actually push you into such a dark place. You don't know where the light is anymore.
So when you were, what have you experienced in regards to mental health?
So I see it closely. Like I feel like a lot of people that I'm very close with have gone through things and our families don't understand it. So that was the first thing. And like, I have someone in my life who's going through like psychosis, and he's very disconnected to reality. So he'll do things that are very, very abnormal, and everyone will be like, oh yeah, but he's just like that. But no, he's not just like that. He needs help. So that conversation was very difficult to even approach to begin with. But then when I lost my mum about like 7 months ago now, I really learnt what depression and like life was about. And then I just came to a point where I was just sitting there with some people I'm close to thinking, if you don't actually care about me, you're going to hear exactly what I have to say every single time I want to say it, otherwise you ain't my people, and I need to keep this moving. Because I was the first one out of my friends to lose my mum, and I feel like that pain is like something you can't even describe. And as a writer, I find it still very difficult, but I just felt like I had to create a safe place around me, and that included removing people. It included removing people, and other people take that place, and if there's not other people, you find that place in yourself, in order to heal yourself through it. So I'd say bereavement really introduced me to the world of mental health properly.
What did you need from people when you were going through, because I think this is important to ask so that people know what to do when...
That's a really good question.
No, because for myself, I'll answer that myself. So what did you need from people or from your peers when you were going through a mental health issue? I never know how to word that correctly, but personally, I just needed people. When I was going through depression, my mum didn't know what was wrong. So she tried so many different things. She would come into my room one day and be like, here's your favourite food. Are you happy now? I was like, no. And then, you know, like, just come in and sit down, like, what's wrong, you know? And I don't know, I can't explain it. So many different things. Friends just disappeared because the consistency of maintaining that friendship declined. And instead of them saying, oh my gosh, what's happened? It's, you've changed and you're not the same anymore, so we're not friends with you. And it's like, like...
Do you know, one thing I found that really helped me, yeah? Like, with one of my boys turned around and said to me, it's cool, I got you. Yeah. And like, hearing that from someone I actually love and care about, when he was like, I got you, he was like, cool, if this is what we got to do, you just let me know. And I was happy, like, he didn't come into my life and be like, oh, you have to wake up at 7 o'clock, you got to go for a walk in the park, like, you got to open the window, get some fresh air. Like, I was happy it wasn't like none of that. It was just, whatever you need to do, let's just do that. So you tell me. And he kind of like threw the ball back to me. And so if I was to turn around and be like, yo, let's go to the park, he'll be like, cool, safe, I'm coming. And like, so the fact that I felt like I needed the opportunity to do things at my own pace, and having that safety net around me that people aren't going to exit. And if they do, like, to be honest, I was in such a low place, it wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even care. So I just found that the benefit of having a real friendship really kicked in. Yeah, someone just saying, I got you tell me. Yeah.
What about yourself?
Well, likewise with myself, my friends, well, I thought were my friends, just disappeared. And the ones that are here today are the ones that I love to the bone, and they love me right back. And they're far and few between, because, like you say, the inconsistency of going out and not being able to socialise, and I just wanted to stay in my house. And, you know, before they said to me, oh, what's wrong? Because this is not like you. They just disconnected. Yeah. Looking back now, it's like, do you know what? It was a clear up. It needed to happen. Seriously. So I'm grateful for it now, but at the time, it was painful. I even had someone that actually did that. I spoke to them 2 weeks ago, if not, 2 weeks ago, and I literally broke down because that same feeling just came back to me. And, you know, I had to tell them that how much they actually hurt me just by disconnecting from me. I didn't know what I was going through at the time. Obviously, neither did they. But that disconnection, you clearly could see that my attitude and my behaviour had changed from what you first knew me as. So, you know, if you're close to someone, you should know that's not them. Something's not right. Even if you can't put your finger in it, you know that something's not right. Yeah. And their disconnection just,
What do you think about the cultural stigma? So, for instance, being West Indian, I could tell you this story openly because I actually don't give a shit. But like when, no, honestly, this is crazy. I remember I have a set of cousins in the West Indies, and there was one family friend that had a son that I wasn't aware of, and this son is like 42. I didn't even know he existed. And I went down to the basement one day and he was living down there. And I went back upstairs and I was like, who is that downstairs? Oh yeah, that's your like cousin, you know, it's your cousin. Why is he downstairs? It's crazy. He's got schizophrenia, it's crazy. We keep him downstairs. And when I spoke about that, I found out that it wasn't there, that people in our culture who have mental illness are shunned away, like literally shunned away, put under the house, or just, you know, on the street. Like there's not much information about it. So when you come out and say, yeah, I had depression, people look at you like, gosh.
Yeah, like it's contagious. Like it's contagious.
You know, and it's...
Why do you want to chat your business?
Yeah, and it's like, keep that to yourself. Like, why are you talking about that? And I noticed as well, there's certain things. So in our culture, we have carnival, alcohol, there's a lot of alcohol consumption. And there's a actual drink called punching, and people drink it. It's crazy. It punches your liver. Like, I don't know if that's why it's called punching, but the point I'm trying to get to, it's a national drink. Like everyone drinks it, and well, not everyone, but partiers drink it. But the thing is, it's a direct link to schizophrenia. It's a direct link to like hearing voices, I guess, and losing your mental stability. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about any of that. Yeah. You know, you would see someone who's homeless on the street and they're talking to themselves, they're crazy. Why are they crazy? How do you help them? Isn't it a bit inhumane to just walk past people and just be like, they're crazy? Because if you was to put yourself in that predicament, wouldn't you want someone to stop and help you?
Oh, they say, I'm mad, she mad.
Yeah. Are you Jamaican?
No, but that's just what's said though, regardless. So my mum's from Montserrat and my dad's from Barbados.
Okay, so what was your experience in regards to like cultural stigma?
I think regardless of where you come from, it is just a stigma. Like I say, it's not spoken about in the home. When I was diagnosed, my first thing was, how am I going to tell my mum? What do I say? Because, like I said, the mental health had the negative connotation. So she's going to think that there's something deeper. Like, I don't even want to say the word, but MAD, you know, because that's what people think when you say you've got mental health issues. And that was what my biggest fear was, telling my mum. And because of that stigma and because of the lack of education, a lack of knowledge, a lack of communication within the household. And, you know, when I first told her, and then when she first heard that I was, you know, speaking out about it, don't mention it too much. Yeah. But now she knows what it's all about and why I'm doing this. But in the beginning, it was like, just don't mention mental health too, you know, just keep that a bit. No, Mum, this is what it is, you know. And no disrespect to my mum, I love her to bits, but like I keep saying, it's the lack of education. Yeah.
What about with culturally?
I think culturally, like discussing mental health from like a traditional Asian background, we're talking like Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, like I have close friends who are like family in from all three countries. Initially, people I think would jump to the possession factor, like you're possessed by a devil or an evil spirit. And that's like that, but that's not as common like in England, especially like it's not as common as in England. But I feel like in my culture in England, when people are to say, yeah, I've got a mental health issue, if you are fortunate enough to discuss it with your family, it could go good, or it could go bad to the point where it's covered up, and it's covered up so well that like you will just get like, I know certain people have just been forced to get married quickly. And they'll just get forced into like an extreme opposite as to what they're actually feeling. And things like that exist. And unfortunately, a lot of people coming from my background don't have a voice to sit here and say these things are actually happening. But it's true, they do. And sometimes as well, people are like, oh yeah, eat this, it'll take it away. Like, oh, have a bit of that tea, like, or go to bed on time. And to be honest, like, I can't blame them. I don't blame them, like, because we came into England in the 1950s, and I believe my parents and grandparents faced a completely different world of struggles to what I faced. And because of that, and even society is only talking about mental health now. So it's not like I come from a backward culture where we're not dealing with these things. Only in England now is it a progressive conversation to have. So I'm hoping that would then now begin to trickle down, or hopefully upwards, into the families and cultural backgrounds I'm from.
And you also got the ones, you know, religious will pray for you. And my thing is, no disrespect to anybody that prays or goes to, you know, any religious institution, but you won't, or you can't pray for someone's arm to heal if it's broken. Only a medical can really fix that. And that's the same kind of thing with a mental health illness, you know, you need medical attention.
And if you really believe in God and the powers of God, then you would understand that God has put people here that can actually like solve these things for you. Do you know what I'm saying? So, oh, you've got an issue, pray for it.
I think sometimes for some people, like spirituality is like such a, and like, that connection with God is such a big thing. I feel like for them, that's the most valuable thing they could give you, because they're giving up their time for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Even though it might sound, it could like, I mean, I've sat with people when I tell them, oh, I could say to someone, I'm going to pray. They'll look at me like I'm absurd. But I'm thinking, don't think that. I'm actually giving you time, like time to sit there and think about you. But I hear what you're saying, though. It is like. Yeah. No, I always say that. Like people in my culture say, oh, it's all written. God's already wrote it. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm sure God has wrote for you to leave your bedroom as well. Like, so get up and actually go and do it. Like, you can't just sit in your bedroom and think, oh yeah, like I'm depressed now and I'm going to pray for my bedroom and it's all going to get solved. No, you have to take them steps yourself. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that's more of my point, rather than I'm not trying to disrespect any religion at all, but that's my point. You need to make steps in order to make yourself better, whether it be medication or whether it be just getting up and, you know, getting on with life and not sticking to the label that you've been given. Because I could have sat down there and stuck to that label. I had to resign. Well, I didn't have to, but I resigned from work. I could have, you know, that's it now. My life is over. Yeah. What I know and what I've been educated to do, I can't do that anymore. But look what's happened now. I've actually used what has happened to me and turned it around and now become who I am today and why I'm sitting here talking to you.
The way we emphasise fitness, you know, so that we can work and maintain our physical bodies, why don't you think we do that with mental health?
I mainly think it's because, the structural institutions that are placed on planet Earth are not designed for one to reach his fullest potential. So therefore, we are so, like, I was saying this to someone earlier, right? If you want help, do you know how hard it is to get help? Yeah. But if you want drugs, alcohol, one-night stands, sex, whatever you want, you can get that instantly. You can get everything that is not good for you instantly. Yeah. But the things that are good, like even like good fruit and vegetable, that costs a lot of money. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Fair trade stuff, you want to start, it costs a lot. So I feel like there's structural things put into place for us not to like reach our highest potential, and that's my view on it.
And even saying that, even going to the doctors, they're quick to write you a prescription, but if you say to them, I want CBT, now I went to the doctors because I was having issues with my eating. I went to the doctors and I said, I think I've got like, I'm binge eating, but I don't want any medication. I just want CBT. I'm still waiting. Yeah. So, but if I said to him, you know, prescribe me some medication, she would have been happy to do so. Yeah. You know, so it's just really, and it's, and because we don't talk about our mental health and our minds and what we can do, the things that we can do are so simplistic. Yeah, we can do them in our own homes. We don't need to leave home to do them. But we spend thousands and hundreds of pounds on going to the gym and buying nice gym clothes. But the things that we can do for free for our minds, we don't do.
There's an interesting thing, right? So CBT, so this cognitive behavioral therapy, there's a lot of apps that have now been designed to help you with your mental health, yeah? But I did some research into these apps, right? And a lot of these apps are not created by mental health experts. They're created by app developers. And I'm not like saying that apps aren't working or they're not great or anything like that. I'm just saying, is it wise to have one who is not an expert advising somebody on a situation like that?
What defines a mental health expert? Because if I've been through depression and I've come out of it, am I not?
Spoke for you.
But everyone's depression is to spoke for them. Yeah. But there must be like a middle ground that you can be able to reach, and then, you know.
It's really difficult because that whole mental health
needs to be had, because it's like, if we can't afford therapy and we can't wait, so we go somewhere else to get the help, is that help as adequate as somebody who's going to be sitting on, like, let's say Harley Street, like a therapist on Harley Street, or someone, do you know what I'm saying? I was researching about that, and there was a lot of like online people saying, oh, well, this person's not an expert, so can they make an app that's going to tell someone about their own mind?
But that's the thing though, when we're using those apps, we're not actually thinking about the person being an expert. We're thinking that it's actually helping us, and probably 8 out of 10 times people are going to say it helped them because it's that whole change in your mindset because you're actually doing something. You know, so regardless of who made it, it's working. So, you know, that whole fact of getting out your room and doing something, you've still got that illness, you still got that label, but because you got out your room and you actually done something, so because they're using the app, they're actually feeling that they're making some progression to making themselves better, then that could be a possibility.
Do you think the conversation is changing in our generation about mental health now?
You know what I think?
Or do you think it's hype?
I think people like us are making hella noise, and then people like the MPs are being like, yeah, look, this was happening, and it's getting pushed down the agenda. Because there's no actual change. I just hear a bunch of people saying, yeah, this is a really sensitive subject. It's great, we've taken a good first step. Do you know how many times I've heard that? Yeah, this is a great first step.
How many first steps are we going to take until we start walking?
I've read reports, and I'm reading this report, and then I get to the date. The date's like 1990, and I'm thinking that I'm reading it for today. Because it's just like, so what's actually changed?
How are we able to
I think
so long?
I think it's like, the conversation has definitely shifted a lot faster in our time. Like last year, the marathon, it was done by Heads Together, and that's a mental health charity. So to have the whole of everyone running London Marathon for mental health, it's a big deal. There's like the royal family in this country are talking about it more. So I think there's definitely, the stigma, I think, is being challenged hard. But the actual help on the back end does too. Like, I feel like it's a bit deep to say to somebody, all right, yeah, so come on, tell us about your problem. It's all right, like, it's a safe place, go on. And you tell us, and we're like, oh yeah, we can't help you. We don't know what to say now, like, we're stuck.
Yeah, I was having that conversation yesterday. Like, you've got all the press and the publicity and the roles that are doing things, but who's actually there to catch the person when they start falling? Now that they've released everything that they've spoken about now, who's there to catch them?
And imagine for our youth, yeah, each school has one nurse, and that nurse is for physical injuries.
Yeah, and now they want to introduce the MHFA for one teacher in the school.
In the school.
It's like, it's
sad.
really not going to work.
And cyberbullying's a real thing out here.
I've been teaching cyberbullying since I've been qualified since 2005, and that was the first thing that was on the curriculum then. So, and they still haven't solved it.
But the curriculum hasn't changed for decades and generations, so it needs to be updated to include. When I say the curriculum hasn't changed, I mean the layout, how 9 o'clock we do this. We haven't adapted. Everything else is adapted to the way life is, but the curriculum itself and schooling hasn't adapted to the impact of social media and what it's having on the children.
Don't you think it's crazy? Yeah, I don't mean to say the word crazy, but don't you actually think it's crazy how we know how a plant feeds itself, but we don't like photosynthesis and the reproduction system of a plant, but I couldn't tell you how my brain works. And I know you could say, oh yeah, go read your own book and figure that out for yourself, but I would have rather have learnt about myself than a bunch of things I learnt in school that didn't really apply to me.
Exactly, and even things like financial management. That is one of the biggest causes for mental health, like people with financial issues. But from young, they're not told about
taxes,
that
mortgages.
Like,
is there a class?
You ask a young
person. Is there a class on mental health in school?
No, there's not.
They might have it in PSHE.
Yeah.
For about, I don't know, half of the term. Once they might start
that class is what? No, it doesn't exist. There's not like mental health syllabus.
No, there isn't a syllabus. I'm actually going into schools next week in my borough to start teaching about what mental health is, and that it's okay to say that you're feeling certain ways.
That's mad. That is not in.
Yeah.
It is, and you know how many times it's been debated in Parliament? So many times, and a debate can only reach Parliament if it gets 100,000 signatures. So more than 100,000 people have constantly signed petitions, and then it gets to Parliament, and then it just doesn't go through.
And then you've got an organisation that are in schools called CAMS, which is always full to the brim, where young people go if they need help. So isn't that an indication that there is something that needs to change and some help needs to come in to help these young people with some kind of intervention before they have to start curing? Because if you can intervene, you're halfway there. So much.